Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we would like to talk to you about relationships. Now, when we talk of relationships, we generally mean a kind of connection. That's usually an emotional connection between people, and it also indicates there is a reciprocity. That means there is a mutual dealings. It's not an individual one-on-one. But then, why is it important? Because relationships really are what sustains our life. Relationships are, it's like the oil in the which runs the engines for the car. It's like the salt in the prasad, because a lot of our mental and emotional state depends on the happiness, the sorrow, the anger that we feel, and how our relationships move reflect our inner feelings, and our state of mind depends on it. And therefore, if you have a very calm, easygoing, comfortable relationship with whoever in general, that makes it much easier for us, and it also immediately reflects on the people who are relating to us. And the good news is that actually we can proactively improve our relationships. There is a lot that we can do ourselves to, and which can derive satisfaction and also inspiration from others. Actually, our Srimad Bhagavatam and scriptures often talk about the love of God, how it manifests through very loving dealings between devotees, and how the devotees have or ought to have a loving compassion for all living entities. So, this actually should be the basis for our relationship. Now, we are all struggling sadhakas, so we may sometimes find it easy, sometimes we may find it difficult and far off. So we keep fluctuating, and sometimes we take these relationships for granted, because that is the nature of Maya. Because she covers our understanding of the value of basic of things which are important for us, and distracts us towards things which are not very important or not at all important, or which have no value. So, for instance, our jobs, our occupation, our property, our intelligence, um, all these have a value insofar as they are connected to, in some way, we can relate to the purpose of life, devotional service to Krishna. But if you isolate it, then from a spiritual perspective, there is no value. While we may put a huge emphasis and that may agitate our minds, because we are bound not to find the success, eternal success in those in material inanimate objects. That is why we have to remember a fundamental truth, and that is that to the degree that we can appreciate our good fortune that Krishna has given us, and to that extent we can benefit from the good fortune. Good fortune is there, whatever our situation, whether we recognize it or not, whether we like it or not, whether we take it for granted or not, our good fortune is there. But our mindset might not let us appreciate our good fortune. Just like an example is given that when we eat nutritious food, but if you're not able to digest it, then there is no benefit. But if you digest the food, you get all the benefit. Only if you digest, otherwise, there is no value. So, similarly, even if we come in front of deities, if we are chanting, we are following the regular principles, we are also associating with devotees, especially. But if we understand how important it is, rather than doing it mechanically or just as a kind of a duty, and if we can recognize how inconceivable this gift of God is, that we have been given this opportunity, then we'll be grateful. And if we are grateful for our good fortune, if we are actually aware of it, if we are mindful of our good fortune, and therefore we are, and because of that we are grateful, our relationships will definitely improve, because then we see how rare our situation is, how rare our situation as a devotee of Krishna, how valuable is the association. After how many millions of births that we have actually got this opportunity. So it's all a question of which perspective we see. If you take a broader perspective, that is from Krishna's perspective, you know, all the planets are running in orbit, the sun comes up at the right time, um, and we are just infinitesimal beings. If we are aware of that, then we'll be very grateful for all the good fortune. But if we are so, but if we see the perspective from the perspective where we are standing right now, and we are blinded to the reality of where we are coming from, then we'll be like trapped in our own emotional vicissitudes, going the ups and downs, and then we'll be struggling with our own many tiny battles. So and we have examples in front of us. Like if you see a sincere brahmachari in a renounced order, um, why do we appreciate sincere brahmachari? Because uh, uh, he also he has to overlook crowded ashrams. He has to overlook absence of family life. Yes, there is no privacy, dealing with so many devotees. But because he's taking a broader perspective of what life is all about, that after millions of births, somehow we've got this chance, and this lifetime is very short. It is also it is described as just like a spark. Like in Diwali, you have these firecrackers. They just go up, zoom, and it's finished. So, from a perspective of the spiritual reality, it is a spark. So, a brahmachari recognizing that puts up with tolerates all the difficulties, and keeps on and on going in his service. So that's why we appreciate it. So we have an example there. Similarly, in congregations also, we have sincere grihasthas who take a broader perspective of life by putting, which makes him or her put Krishna and Guru's priorities as number one, in spite of so many allurements and distractions. Making money, so many other distractions are there, social distractions, old colleagues, friends, etc. And then if we have a work, but then we've been working every birth practically. So we should be, if we are aware of these examples that both in any ashrams, and then that serves as an inspiration for us to know that we may find it difficult, but then there are others who are able to see it that way. And this has a direct connection with how we approach relationships. Because if we are grateful and if we are able to see it in the right perspective, then there is a compassion that develops and which really helps us to take a charitable view of and a helpful view of people and beings around us. Otherwise, we are going to focus more on the very superficial, insignificant, mundane aspects of the friendships, association, relationships we have. The nitty gritties and which really become a source of irritations for us. We miss the wood for the trees, as I said. We are looking so minutely that we really miss the perspective. So therefore, then we will not be able to fulfill what Srila Prabhupada has said as his most famous words, that you can show a love for me by how you cooperate. So whether it is with your spouse, whether it is with your temple authority, with other devotees, or even with relationships with office colleagues, etc., the equipoise, the balance, the mental balance, and the thinking behind that would be missing. And Krishna directly tells the Prachetas in the Bhagavatam that I'm giving you my darshan and blessings because of your loving friendship with each other. So that's how important and how much value he puts to um, the dealings and relationships between people. So, is there a formula for success in relationships? I mean, there may be various ways to say it, but I just taken one line says that if you get along, they will go along. If you get along, they will go along. That means if you get along with people, people will also get along with you, and things will just roll. But the catch is, what does getting along mean? Getting along means understanding people, loving people, helping people. Even if we don't have a liking for a person, but we may have a certain respect and appreciation, or even if we don't have that, we have a better understanding of the person, where he or she comes from, and keeping that in mind, then we would be focusing on what we can put into people rather than what we can extract from them. So sensitivity in dealings is very essential. And a guiding principle for us in relationships is given in the Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami, Dadati Prati Grinati Guhyam Akhyati Prachati Bhumte Bhojayate Chaiva Sad Vidham Priti Lakshanam. So the six loving exchanges that are there, um, which become kind of a guiding principle for us, giving gifts and gifts in a larger sense, receiving gifts or receiving love. Gifts can be there can be non-monetary gifts, but broadly speaking, uh, from our point of view, giving means to love, and love means to give. For instance, between mother and child, why do we take that example? We keep hearing it so often because in this material world, it's considered the highest example because people know see that the child has absolutely no reciprocal instincts. The child is not even aware what the mother is doing. When the child is in the womb of the mother, and the child is a baby, uh, so the mother keeps doing happily, lovingly, without any reciprocation. So it is completely selfless. It's a one-way traffic. So that's the motto that in giving we receive. So that's why we follow that. So similarly, in receiving also, we should be very grateful that and the example that Prabhupada set, Srila Prabhupada was so felt obligated to his disciples. So many times he said that you have been sent by my Guru Maharaj to help me. Once one devotee gave him a $10 bill in post, and he wrote such a beautiful letter. He really appreciated every step. He saw the spirit behind the mood behind the devotee who was trying to help. So, the expressing gratitude is a very critical means, and even if we find it difficult, we should practice it. Because practicing to express gratitude helps us to express gratitude. Like in everything else, we need to practice. And here also, and we'll practice only when first we intellectually understand and appreciate, mentally we accept it, and then putting into practice, we have to discipline ourselves if we don't have it about expressing gratitude. And also the revealing one's mind is a very difficult thing, but it is very important because that brings relationships closer, gets people come closer. And even if we do not have too many people whom we can reveal our minds to, the dearest friend one can reveal one's mind to, who will never ever be our enemy, is Krishna, is God. So if we are in touch with Him, if we actually meditate on how grateful we are, at the same time how we are struggling with our problems, that is a communication with Him. So that everybody has the opportunity, even if we do not have a friend, a physical friend, whom we could call up at that moment. And then receiving the confidences or accepting other people's confidential discussions with us is also a very important exchange of love. And this brings a very critical quality, and that is developing trust. And in relationships, trust is paramount. I would go to say that it is more difficult to even to develop trust and to sustain trust than love or respect. It's easier to love people. Or it can also be easier. We can respect people, but to completely trust is uh, is is not that easy, and that takes a lot of time, and it needs a consistent feeling of total uh, faith in a person, which takes a lot of time before we uh, put our trust in another object, another person. And there's a beautiful example in the Bhagavatam which describes it very nicely, and that is the relationship between Vasudev and Nanda Maharaj. Now, this gives us the example of intense trust. Why? Because Vasudev, uh, Vasudev's wife was also Rohini, and he entrusted his pregnant wife Rohini to Nanda Maharaj. Uh, and at that too, Nanda Maharaj took such a big risk because Kans was obviously knowing that Rohini was Vasudev's wife, and and Nand Maharaj was in a sense materially obligated to Kans because he had to pay his taxes, and Kans was the king, and Kans was a very vindictive, vicious, wicked man. In spite of that, That was the trust that Vasudev had on Nanda Maharaj, and the trust that Nanda Maharaj accepted it and reciprocated just out of his full love for Vasudev and keeping Rohini with him. Also, after Krishna was born, if you go to see that Vasudev and Devki, actually they had meditated for thousands of years before they actually got this opportunity to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the child, and that too in the prison, and that too after having six children being killed brutally in front of their eyes, and now they find that uh, the, the Supreme Person of Godhead is born with them as a child, and they knew it was the Supreme Personality at least at that moment, because he it was like one moment Devki was pregnant, and the next moment she didn't have to go through any labor pains. Immediately there was Krishna in Lord Vishnu's form with all the paraphernalia and all the you know. Ornaments and so on, and he was seeing, he was much above them. He was looking at them from top, so they could not have seen that he was Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the next moment he became a child, and then he instructed that he should be taken from there. So they could very well have felt, Vasudev and Devki could have felt disappointed at the least, perhaps even angry or a little jealous also, that we have put in so much effort. Finally, we get the Supreme Personality as a child, and then now he's gone. So, and Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda are getting all the fruits of the cream, you see from a material point of view. But they never ever felt that. They were so happy, so happy. So, this is the kind of trusting relationship that becomes our goal, that where we also look at from Krishna's point of view, as they were saying, that whatever is best for Krishna. And then exchanging, means feeding people and then also accepting in love what others offer is also two other exchanges which are there, which are very important, because it is a sign of disrespect if we do not accept what is offered to us in love, and also it establishes active relationship. So we also talked about non-physical gifts. There could be kind words, there are friendly association, praise, there's good news. There's so many aspects of various ways of these are all gifts which are really positive strengths for us, which we can take up more and more. Now, there are some general guidelines I'd like to just share with you on which can help us to enhance relationships. My father's Guru Maharaj, uh, who used to tell him, and then my father would tell us when we were children very often. And then, in fact, Radhanath Maharaj has also quoted this in his wisdom book, that he used to tell him in Hindi, कि बेटा दो चीज याद रखो और दो चीज भूल जाओ. And my father told us so many times because he really felt it very deeply. So, what are the two things to remember? And these are guidelines which can help us, especially in our relationships. One is that we should always remember that there is death, and that there is the Lord, and the second is that Ishwar, uh, Maut or Ishwar, dono. That means God and the. Why? Because it leads us to chanting the holy names, because Krishna is present in His holy name, and then that in turn really starts the purification process, which helps us to establish the proper relationships. And the two things that we should forget, he said that if we have done something good to someone, some we may have done something which somebody benefited from, we should forget. And if someone else has done something which has affected us negatively at any time, we should forget. But if you see, in life we actually do the opposite. We tend to remember what all the things that we have done for others, and we'll always remember and remind others also that this is what I did and so on. And anyone who's done negatively for us, we never forget. So actually, for a proper relationship with anyone, particularly with intimate people, these are very critical things that we should forget what good things that we have done to others, and also what other people may have that in whatever capacity they may have hurt us, or and we have felt bad, then we should forget that. Second is to develop a mindset of a honeybee rather than a fly. The analogy is given because in Kali Yuga, people tend to criticize, very quick to criticize, very quick to find faults, like we gossip, and then we really relish rumors of others' defects. When we, especially wrong things that are going, and if we don't like the person, then we find happiness in that. We may not show it, but that generally happens, and that's like a fly, because the fly only goes to where the dirt is, and the honeybee actually goes to the flowers and actually takes the nectar from it, the honey. And therefore we should also look and see where we can see people's good qualities and try to extract that, and just leave uh, the other difficulties or negative aspects behind us. Another third aspect which we should remember, the general guideline, is our words, spoken words, our speech, because this is can destroy relationships, and we may not even realize it, how much of a deep impact it has. So the heart is like a clay pot, easily broken, and to repair it, just like it's very difficult to repair a broken pot. Similarly, a broken heart is not easy to repair, and sometimes the relationships may be affected for this entire lifetime, and then we become angry till the other person changes his behavior, and otherwise our anger doesn't go. So our mood becomes very much kind of revenge seeking often. So all this may come from not necessarily physical action, but even words. And there's a very nice story to illustrate anger, and which I'll ask Radhapriya to just share with us.
I remember when you were saying about um, when people say bad things. So when I was a child, my mother always used to say, "Kam khana, gum khana," means you eat less and you uh, gum khana. You know, like you forget whatever is been told to you. And about this angry young boy, the story is that he was such a angry boy. He used to get angry every small thing. He used to get angry, and so one day his father told him that whenever when you get angry, you just go to the garden and we have a fence there. So every time you get angry, you start putting one nail on the fence. So the boy, he started doing it, and within no time the whole fence was full with nails. So he went and told his father that, now the whole fence is full with the nails. What do I do? He said, now whenever you don't feel angry, and the day you don't feel angry, or in a day, if you are feeling angry, instead of say 3 times, you get angry one time. So every time, whenever you don't get angry, just go and remove one nail from the fence. So that boy, he started doing it. Whenever he was not feeling angry, he would just go and remove one nail from there. And one day it happened that the whole fence was without any nails. So father took him there and said that, what do you see on the fence? He said, I don't see any nails. The father said, do you see something else? He said, I see lots of marks there. So he said that our heart is like a fence. Anytime anyone says something bad to us, all these marks remain. How much ever you try to, remove those nails, but so that's why, when when we don't like anyone telling us in a bad tone, or if a person gets angry to us, we don't like to hear that. The same way, if we don't like to take uh, that thing, that we should not give it to others. So we should speak things what we like to hear. if we like to hear soft spoken or nice things, we also should try to say good things or nice things to other instead of getting angry. And I had read somewhere that a nagging wife is like a leaking roof. So in now it is monsoon, and you know if the our roof starts leaking here, there, so they said that we should not nag in the like relationship. It can be husband also. So husband wife, if they stop nagging to each other, the relationship can improve.
So that's how speech, words, angry words, in anger we speak, and how that destroys, that affects us, affects people very badly, and people tend to remember. Takes a long time to heal. Also, we should always have a sense of fairness. We need to be fair by putting ourselves in other people's shoes, because oftentimes we take a very subjective view, and that makes us worked up. But then, if we see what would we have done if we were in the other person's shoes, we may not like the tone, or we may feel that maybe it's done a little more harshly, but at least it would give us a much better understanding of the overall picture. So, trying to put ourselves in other person's shoes at all times, especially when we don't like someone, and we want to, because our mind would be to come to quick judgment, and feel comforted, falsely comforted in our mind by having negative thoughts about someone. So that's developing a sense of fairness is very important. And really speaking, others have been fair to us, and that's how where we are. Also, we need to be supportive, caring, encouraging. These are very important in enhancing relationships. Somebody once mentioned that people do not care how much you know. People do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. So, first comes the caring. They're not interested in the knowledge per se, they're interested in the feelings of the heart. So, this can come appropriate to the situation and appropriate to the person. If we are with intimate family, parents, spouse, children, it's a different nature. If it is with in the temple authorities, devotees, or in our occupational environment, it would be different. But the common link would be that we would be concerned, we would be encouraging generally. The pattern would be that we are not out to destroy someone or to pull someone down. We should be supportive rather than negative. And very important to for relationship would be, first of all, do we have a deep desire to please others, whoever it is? Um, because the mood of serving then that develops. See, if we want to have a relationship, we define a relationship with anyone, and we kind of give it a twist or a color which is not actually what we feel, then that would be hypocritical, and that is really diplomacy. That is, as they say, giving a spin to the situation. But in essence, in a heart, now it may be that in a business relationship or an occupation relationship, uh, the serving would be in a different level. You serve the organization, and thereby and if anyone needs any help, you're there to help. But there's a more professional need. But as you grow with others who are more intense, and especially we're talking of emotional relationships, which are generally in the temple or a family family environment, then this becomes very important that desire to please is the fundamental, because then the service attitude would develop. Without the service attitude, it would just be very erratic. Sometimes we feel nice, we will be speaking nicely, having maintained good relation, and then we will be the subject. Service automatically means the other person is the subject. And there's a very nice, beautiful example in one of the six Goswamis, Gopal Bhatt Goswami's example when he was a child. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to the south during the Chaturmas, he stayed at his Venkat Bhatt's place, Gopal Bhatt's father's place. But before he stayed at his place, there was an interaction, and when Venkat Bhatt actually got the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was in ecstasy. And but it is said that he was ecstatic, but he didn't want to wallow in the ecstasy, or he didn't want to just enjoy the ecstasy. He wanted to enjoy the service. So his most important concern was how he could serve, and immediately he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to please come home. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing the state of his heart, agreed and stayed at his home for 4 months. And then Venkat Bhatt was in total service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Gopal Bhatt was only a 5-year-old boy, Gopal, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just when he touched Gopal and Gopal went into ecstasy, even he, like his father, instead of enjoying just the ecstasy, whatever 5-year-old can do, he started doing, helping his mother, his father in trying to serve. So the point from here is that we're not just concerned with enjoying the love that people. Sometimes we get love from people we respect, which really we like, and but then if we just enjoy, rather than turning it around, and actually we should be concerned with serving the people whom we love, or who serving the beloved, serving the people who deserve that. So the accent, the emphasis should be on service rather than enjoyment. Even if it is very nice to enjoy loving a person, and we like that, but high level of love is to give enjoyment to the person we love. But then that's an expression of we have to put it into action. And Krishna never sees how big or small our sacrifice or service is. He sees the sincerity. So that is important. And lastly, a very important point is that how we behave with others actually draws the certain qualities from within them. It is very natural. Like, for instance, if someone insults us, or if we insult someone, that person is likely to be very angry. If we praise someone, then that person will be happy, he'll be proud, he'll be confident. And if you're affectionate to someone, then they will also be affectionate to us. So, if we are mindful of this, if you're aware that how we behave, rather than waiting for someone else's behavior and just reacting to things, how we behave with others will actually bring out those qualities. And again, if you see Srila Prabhupada's example and many of his disciples' examples all over the world, if you now just introspect and see, why do we love them so much? It is primarily because that their dealings are such that they actually, from our heart, draw out all the good things that we have. I often find that when and that's something which it was bewildering, but also very happy to understand that that when we are with people who are very positive, people who are very learned, wise, genuine, sincere, humble people, you always get positive vibrations, and you really they take the best out of you. Even you also act in a much better way naturally, and vice versa. So if from that we can learn that we have a lot to play. We are not just on the receiving end. We ourselves are proactively in charge of a relationship. So how we behave, other people are going to be affected also, positively or negatively. So therefore, if we love people, or if we deal with them gently, fairly, supportive, comforting them, if we are there for them, if they get that sense at all times, it's almost always the case that the reciprocation would be likewise. So if we were to just look at, if we were to divide, we define the material and the spiritual. You can say the material world and the spiritual world, not in the physical sense only, because ultimately we may be going to the temple with all material qualities, and we may be we may be chanting, but still that is not what we want spiritual. What we really mean spiritual is by behavior, by action, and which translate into relationships. So then, if you were to define what are the opposites in both material and spiritual, for instance, material will be defined as selfish. Spiritual world is unselfish. Now that could be also in any environment. Material world will be defined by me first. Spiritual world would say others are first. Material world would be saying, I would like to guard information, I'll be secretive, I don't want to share. And the spiritual world is you share information. You share information, you share your love, you share what is valuable to you, you want to give to others. In material world, you take credit. Spiritual world is you give credit to others. Material world means you blame others. And in spiritual world, you feel the responsibility. And I would say, when we're going through this list, just keep Prabhupada in mind in every aspect of it. While he, with some of his own disciples' problems or challenges and mistakes, he, in spite of that, he gave them credit. He took the responsibility. He was spreading Krishna consciousness. He was sharing information. He was also always pushing them. He never put his name anywhere. So you can see how it becomes, how he created a spiritual world. Material world means you manipulate others. Um, as you're manipulating material energy, you also manipulate people's feelings. While spiritual world means you motivate people. Material world means competitive at all times, but the spiritual world will be collaborative. Now, here we must say that in an occupation, you may does it mean that we can't compete? No, that's in a narrower sense of that we have to do what we are doing, but we are talking of a larger when we talk of emotional relationships. At that time, uh, instead of being competitive, we need to be cooperative and collaborative. A material world will be defined as a star mentality because I am most important. So I am the star. We may not say it, but that's what we thrive on. While the spiritual world would be a servant mentality. The material world would be having motivated love. So even if there's love, there is also some reciprocation expected or some benefit expected out of that. Where spiritual world would mean unmotivated love. So we may be whoever we are struggling devotees, but if we have qualities which are, let's say, if we now say that we have some matlab, we have some motivation behind our love, or we are diplomatically we are saying something to devotees also because it may be nice, but we mean something else, or we actually are not being totally transparent, straightforward, or if we are very subtly taking the credit away from them, um, uh, or we are blaming others when there's a problem, then whether we are chanting 16 rounds, whether we are in the temple environment, whether we're hearing Bhagavatam every day, but that means we have not made the connection between what our sadhana is meant to lead us to. So relationships must reflect, um, hopefully, that as we get integrated into our Srila Prabhupada's movement and Vaishnava philosophy, we at the same time work on not just the externals that I've distributed these books, I've given this much money, I've the quantitative aspects, but the critical part is we have to look at what we can do to are we actually in sync with what is expected of us, whether relationships are in line with the an expectation of uh, what a spiritual sadhaka should be doing. So, if we were to um, stress the most important aspect, I would say that it's just that the quality of relationship depends upon us. I think if there's one takeaway that we need to, I would like to stress is that it is um, because oftentimes we if it suits us we place the victim card, and and we may feel that well we couldn't do anything about it, and we have had to bear the burden. But very often, most likely, um, not most likely, I say always, the quality of the relationship actually depends on us. That means how we react. We need to make the necessary efforts to maintain relationship. I have control over my behavior, and therefore I have to see what I can do to keep relations. We have to focus on what we can do, how we react. So while there may be things which we cannot control, but what we can control is our reaction to it. We cannot expect others to behave as per expectations every time. So So in short, the effort on enhancing relationship is very it can be very pleasurable if we were to just bite the bullet and accept our mistakes when we have made mistakes, express happiness and gratitude, and give credit to others when it is due, because it's a relief actually. Otherwise, it's actually a burden of taking away from someone and carrying it. So, with that in if that in focus, we can try and see where we are today. Nothing is lost. If we are open-minded, we are looking at our own efforts internally. Then wherever we are, what is it that we can do tomorrow, day after, and onwards with different people, and see how whether it needs any repairing, any changes from our side. So I think at this stage, there are some questions which are come through the chat, so we may try to take them. There is a question which says how to deal with toxic people even amongst devotees. See, there will always be people. Now, first of all, there is an angle of subjectivity, and in the sense, whom I would consider toxic, certainly in my perception, and therefore I have to deal with that. So we have to at least keep in mind that perhaps somebody else may not see that other person with that much, negativity as I may be doing. So that itself, we have to um, nail it in our minds, because it's usually a fact. And at least I've seen in my experience that when I see somebody some of there are people whom I may not be comfortable with, but when I see that, how come my Guru Maharaj is seeing that the positive aspects in another person, and when I see, then it actually makes a difference. And then, while the negative parts may be less, I mean, will be toned down. So that is one thing that first we need to keep this in mind, that um, that it is nobody has all negative and on all positive. And the other is that yes, there may be people whom we may have difficulty, because maybe there is a style of management, maybe our approach is different. People's personalities are very different. There may be friction, and sometimes if we are in services together, like someone may be highly very wants to do things on his or her own, and someone is happy to be in a group. Someone is very pushy and aggressive, someone is much more passive, so then there can be friction. So you know, we can try and see that we minimize our contact points if possible, and then still it may be that it may be in our own family that we may have some difficulties. Then still we should always remember that how we behave reflects on it will also on Prabhupada and the movement, because we are budding devotees. Um, I just shared an example that it was not a toxicity, but I just shared that how a reminder helps. That once when I was somebody was honking very badly when I was driving a car, and unnecessarily honking constantly when I was waiting for the signal to move, and I was getting worked up, and went on for about 15-20 seconds non-stop. And I was about to open the door and give him some piece of my mind. And first I saw in the rear view mirror, and then first thing I saw was my own tilak. And then just calm me down. I said that I can't let go, and I know whatever it is I have to just keep quiet. So sometimes we have to find a way to know that we are representing someone, Prabhupada. We don't matter at all. We represent. So that also helps us in keeping a control over us. And thirdly, I would say that even after we keep, to whatever extent we can keep a distance, and we respect from someone from far, if it's a devotee, no matter what the situation, we don't know that person's background. The fact that they have also struggled for, giving up material attachments, struggling for developing, in spite of their own challenges, they're doing that, it deserves respect. So even if we are not comfortable with someone, or even if somebody has nature is maybe nasty, very difficult, at least we should mentally respect, because that otherwise would be not correct. And then in terms of interactions, minimizing it is as much as possible, and otherwise we have to tolerate that. When we know sometimes we're going to a situation where we are going to meet a person, the same person, and we know that then we are on our guard, and then we may be very formal, we may be controlled. We have to somehow find ways to control ourselves, that we don't we know the trigger points will be there. So in those situations, or we really need to, when we anticipate, most of the time we can anticipate that now is the time I'm going to be in an awkward situation. I'm going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult, but at least there may be a certain, maybe there is a certain awkwardness, but at least there will not be any friction. And hopefully over time we may be able to, as I said, actually see and appreciate, because to some extent it is also due to our own unearthers that we see, because when sometimes when we have our own faults, we see those same faults in someone else. When I see someone being very diplomatic, or someone who's being over smart, or someone, and then I think that, well, actually I'm thinking that way because that's the way I'm thinking. Maybe the person may think or not. So there could be various aspects to it. So I think we need to be a little cautious in our first judgment, and nevertheless, even if the difficulty is there, minimize as much as possible. And after minimizing, also, if we still have to meet, just be on our guarded behavior. Try to see that we don't step beyond certain certain lines. And if there's possibility of taking guidance, that's always helpful. Someone whom we trust and whom we can, uh, whom we can, whom we can relate to. I just like to. Sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, you. I just remember one incident. We were going to Calcutta for some wedding, and the they brought the breakfast tray, and by mistake the air hostess she tripped, and the whole tray came on my lap, and we were going for a wedding, so we had to, straight from the airport we were going for the wedding, the place where the wedding was. And I was about to, get up and say something, but as you remember that you had tilak, I also had tilak and I had bead bag in my hand. So I immediately just control myself. My sari was in a mess, and you also waited that if I would get upset, you would also, get upset with
Hmm.
the air hostess. But when we kept quiet, I didn't say anything. She was so apologetic, and she was going again and again, again and again, and you know the head also came,
Let's do it.
steward, and then she also apologized, and they tried to clean my sari, and they were, and the thing what she said, uh, any other person would have got so upset, and it was a mistake, but we didn't do it deliberately, but just seeing your reaction, it it really helped us. And so they were very grateful also, they were very sorry also. So I remember the situation that, when you control your speech, control your anger, it really helps.
Yeah, as we said, how we behave with others, it draws those qualities from them. So this is a perfect example of, if we act with restraint, the other person, really reciprocates with much greater kindness. And I was also going to just mention about, we talked about trust, and I underlined the critical importance, uh, how important it is. And I asked one question to Radhanath Maharaj during Bhagavatam when he was talking about point of trust. And I said that Maharaj, oftentimes, in ISKCON particularly, I find that I can't trust anyone, because you want to tell something confidential, and it is before you go home, a lot of people are going to be knowing about it, and so I was going from that angle. Maharaj heard me patiently, and he just said, "Well, at least you try to be what you want others to be. You try to be first. So why don't you try to be trustworthy before you expect others to? Before you want to put trust in others, um, you should be the person you are wanting others to be." And that was a lesson which I really felt was very, very crucial. And he lives it in his life. He has, everyone trusts him. So this also helps in knowing that what is it that I can do, what behavior can I do to, what is that they expect. if they sometimes there is no solution, somebody comes to you and there is nothing you can do. But if they just come and they want to pour their hearts out, at least you can be a listener. That's the role. If they want guidance, that is the role. If they want you to only keep it to yourself, I mean, very often many devotees, younger devotees, they speak to Radhapriya, and you know there is we have a complete understanding because they trust her, and then she doesn't have to tell me. I don't need to know, but if I need to know, then she'll tell me. So it is understood. So that's the way one has to really keep the trust of others in any respect, in any aspect.
There is one question: how to overcome fault finding in other devotees, especially when engaged in service together? It affects relationships as well cause Vaishnav Aparadh.
Yeah. So I think that's we. First question was to some extent, when we have when we are with people whom we have got a negative view. So I will again repeat that when I tend to see that person then from my Guru Maharaj's point of view, if it's my god brother or god sister, and even though I may still have differences, but I've invariably seen that I get a much fairer view when I see it from my Guru Maharaj's perspective on that initiative. Because if Guru is so sees so many wonderful qualities, and he is not flattering. Guru doesn't flatter, and he genuinely sees. And then lo and behold, I always find that actually, if I were to take an objective view, yes, there is a lot of merit in that. Nevertheless, I may still not appreciate someone's style, maybe, or someone's way of doing things, but then they may not appreciate my way of doing it. There may be different things. So then it becomes a limited issue and not a larger issue, which is a personality clash where you just don't talk to each other unless you find someone who's directly hurting you, or in which case that's a different thing. But that is usually not the case. Here it's more about personalities or some words spoken here or there. So I would suggest that just try to introspect and see whether we may not change our view completely, but we could see it from a person whom we respect very much and someone who has a very good opinion of that person. Number two, we can try to, when we are doing service together, uh, we can also say that, as if we are without faults. If we have faults, and just because it is not expressed to us, we are not aware or nobody's told us, it doesn't mean that we don't have faults. So therefore, it evens out things. We see someone's fault, but someone is seeing our fault, but they don't tell us. So therefore, in our mind, we would say that, well, everybody has some faults or the other, and I have to deal with this person, and I have. So if I'm anticipating it, I will also try to brace myself and see that I'll get to that period with positive thinking and seeing it from the point of view of others rather than from my point of view.
But if you feel that you are, if you are what do you say, tolerating that person, that same person is tolerating
Yeah,
you
absolutely
also.
right. Another question is, please suggest how to forgive and forget any hurting action of a devotee which has deeply hurt us. You are, if you are, and has ruined our relationship with that particular devotee. Please suggest how to forgive and forget any hurting action of a devotee which has deeply hurt us. You are, and if you are, and has ruined our relationship with that particular devotee. Uh, so if something has happened which has really caused a rift, which sometimes time is the best healer. Well, time is always the best healer. So that sometimes helps, because if we don't have much interaction for some time, then what happens is that after some time when we are meeting, and I'm not saying only in this case, I'm saying it could be, this does happen often, that we have had some, let's say, maybe angry words spoken or exchanged. We have a strong difference of view, and then we, after some time, we mellow down. So that is one. I mean, at least our anger, the intensity becomes less. Now, here from the question, it seems that okay, we are very hurt. So let's assume that the hurt is deep, and so I think same principle will apply that if we have to, at least if they are devotees, then we see that in their own way, no matter what, they have seen it in us in a different way. So we don't have to do much. We don't have to give our emotional control to them and ponder over it. Oftentimes, this we get worked up because we are always meditating, often meditating on the negative part because sometimes it is also a reflection of feeling that I am better than you. It may not be in this case, but I'm saying from my point of view, often when I reflect that when you're thinking negatively, it somehow suits you because you feel that you are you did better and the other person has done wrongly. So it could be. So therefore, the idea is to as much as possible minimize the thinking about that those people. They are there, and often the times that we may have to meet or interact would be very few compared to the times they occupy our mind, the shell space of our mind. So, and that is something which we have to work on, and then we have to talk to our mind that why do we need to. So, out of sight, out of mind. Fine. You may not change your opinion. You got hurt. You will be careful. You will not be. You don't want to perhaps interact or take help or something in future. If possible, you may not. That's fine. But why do we need to? That's different than to think about that and have negative views. You have a view, and you may respect that others may not have that same view. But I think to talk about it, or to if not talk, at least in our minds we go over it. That is something in our control, and we have to work towards it as to why do we need to think about that as often. Sometimes it may be because it's a family thing. A family is hurt, so then we discuss it. Then the family has to, the husband, wife, or if they're older children, I mean, that is something which collectively we need to do because it really is a big help that we don't discuss or don't think even about someone. We have our view, and it is based on some fact. I would say that's a very important aspect. And the other would be that we could take help of. There are some wonderful people who have, who have very good understanding of personalities, people, wisdom, a lot of spiritual understanding, and whose help we can take, and if we have the confidence that we can share with them. And for instance, Govind Prabhu is one, is someone who has helped a lot of people in that way because he has an objectivity and also he understands psychology and he has 35 years of experience. So people like that, if you have access to, then that's a great opportunity to take benefit of. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
RG Media YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe.